Hello and welcome back to Over My Dead Pod. I'm your host today, Holly Spear.
This is Kate Carter.
And I'm Kylie Caldwell.
And today is my episode, and the story I have for you today is the Weepy Voice Killer.
I already don't like this. That word, I can't tell you the last time I've heard that word, but it automatically gives me the creeps.
Yeah, I don't like it either. It's Weepy just also sounds like the word moist to me. It's just like, ew, you know?
It's creepy. It's weepy creepy.
Yeah,
It's creepy weepy.
it's creepy and just slimy, and I don't like it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so Kate and Kylie were saying that they don't know the story. When I was researching this case, I found a lot of articles that called this a famous case. I don't know if I would call it that. I just learned about it fairly recently, so I don't know, but it's a crazy one and a memorable one for sure. So we will just hop right in. Karen Poltak is 18 years old. She is a student at the University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point. It's New Year's Eve, 1980, in St. Paul, Minnesota, and Karen is going out tonight. Her plan is to meet up with her sister and her friends and celebrate New Year's Eve, as one does, and they're going to go to the bars off of University Avenue. Karen spends the night with her friends doing usual New Year's Eve things. She's drinking, dancing, she's having a good time. She drinks champagne when the clock strikes midnight, all the things. And by midnight, Karen is pretty lit. She's pretty intoxicated. Shortly after the clock strikes midnight, Karen somehow ends up wandering off without anyone. She finds herself wandering alone outside, still holding her glass of champagne. She's not wearing her jacket, and temperatures are below freezing, and there's snow on the ground. However, being that it was New Year's Eve on University Avenue, which is a popular bar scene, I think, there were a lot of people around. Lots of partygoers on the crowded street, walking around, coming in and out of bars. So, yeah, it is dangerous for her to be out there, but like without her friends and kind of vulnerable, but at least there's a bunch of people around. It's not like a desolate area. However, as I'm sure you knew something bad was coming, Karen stumbles into an alleyway, a dark and empty alleyway. And the only person down this alleyway was Karen and a man in a car. As the car approaches Karen, the man in the car rolls his window down, and the man asks if Karen needs a ride home. Karen looks into the warm car, and of course she is drunk and probably freezing at this point, and unfortunately, she takes the man up on his offer. Karen gets into the car with him. Then, only a couple of hours later, at 3 o'clock a.m. that same night, police receive a phone call.
Yes, please, this is an emergency. Please send a squad to Pierce Butler Road, Molenberg Manufacturing Company, machine shop. Please, there's an ambulance too. There's a girl hurt there.
Can you tell me what happened to her?
Just hurry, she's laying on the ground in the back by the railroad tracks, by the engine. Hurry.
What's the address?
I don't know.
Who are you?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Not okay with that voice.
Yeah, it's a creepy, creepy voice. I can't stand it.
That is not okay. Weepy is a great word for it, and it sounds like a cartoon character voice.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a bad Mickey Mouse impersonation.
Yes. Yeah.
They should have called this one the Mickey Mouse Killer, because the Weepy Mickey Mouse Killer, because
If he had laughed, then that
preposterous.
would have put me somewhere else.
Oh yeah, no, could not do that.
I mean, I don't want any spoiler alerts, but this whole time I'm just gonna be wondering if that's a fake voice or his real voice.
Yeah,
Don't
fair.
tell me.
Okay, I won't. If you didn't know what the hell you just heard, you're not alone. That was not just your audio messing up. This weird little man sounds like this, and luckily I have the transcript. So he says, quote, "Yes, please. This is an emergency. Please send a squad to Pierce Butler Road, Malvern Manufacturing Company machine shop. Please send an ambulance too. There's a girl hurt there." The dispatcher says, "Can you tell me what happened to her?" And he says, "Just hurry. She's lying on the ground in the back of the railroad tracks by the engine room." The operator asks, "What's the address?" And he says, "I don't know." The operator says, "Who are you?" and he just hangs up the phone. I just imagine him hanging up the phone and like going straight back to normal. I don't know. We won't spoil,
I
but
have to say, like, I've always thought about this. Whenever I've had to call 911, I never know the address. I'm like, this day and age, can you please just look at my location? Like, I don't know where I am, you know. I've had to call 911 when Cam and I have been on the side of a highway for like some car accidents or like something happened and we had to call 911. And each time I've been like, I hold on, let me look at my maps. Like, I can't tell you street names, stuff like that.
Exactly. No, same.
I think about that every time I'm driving on the highway. I was like, if I had to call 911, what would I even say? I don't even know what state I'm in.
I look at the exit numbers.
I do too, and the mile markers. Okay, I'm like, okay, I'm halfway between mile marker 34 and 35.
Ooh, I don't look at mile markers. That's really smart. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't even look at mile markers.
I always will. I'll be like, exit 32. Okay, I just passed exit 32. 32.
That's crazy.
Are we all weird?
Anyways, police dispatch officers to the manufacturing company machine shop. And just like the caller had said, this is where they find a bloody mess. A woman lying on the ground, having been completely beaten. Her body is laying in the snow by the railroad tracks, completely naked. She had been beaten with a tire iron so extensively that her skull had been split open and officers could see her brain. But y'all,
she dead?
She was rushed to the hospital. And doctors performed life-saving surgery, and Karen lived. This woman, this freaking badass woman, lived.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
You don't hear that often in our stories, so that's like a big deal.
Yeah. However, although Karen lived, she didn't remember a thing about the accident. She didn't remember leaving the bar drunk. She didn't remember getting into the man's car or anything about the man that savagely beat her near to death. Also, unfortunately, after extensively searching the crime scene where Karen was found, police did not find not one clue. There were not even any witnesses on this crowded street that saw Karen get into the car. So, unfortunately, without any more evidence, police are kind of at a standstill with Karen's case. Police hope that this was just a one-off incident, and they're not looking for someone who is going to do this again. But police feel in the back of their minds that this is someone who is. And they won't have to wonder for long because June 3rd, 1981, just 5 months later, police hear a familiar voice on the other end of a 911 call. 18-year-old Kimberly Compton had just graduated high school. She was from Pepin, Wisconsin. And Pepin is a small town in Wisconsin, and Kimberly had always wanted to move to the big city of St. Paul. And on June 3rd, 1981, Kimberly packs up her bags and gets on a Greyhound bus. She rides the bus to St. Paul, where she gets off to start her new life. And she'd hardly even made it out of the bus station. She puts her bags into the locker at the Greyhound station and walks across the street to a little diner called Mickey's Diner. She sits down and orders the special. Across the room, there's a man sitting alone in a booth, just drinking a cup of coffee. This man comes up to Kimberly and sits down next to her and strikes up a conversation. They talk about how Kimberly's from Wisconsin and what brought her here, and how it was her first day in St. Paul. The man tells her about the town. He seems normal and nice. He was in his 30s. They sit there and talk until Kimberly finishes her meal. The man's giving off pretty normal vibes, so when the man offers to take Kimberly around and show her the sights, she happily agrees.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
I know.
You don't do that.
I know.
Holly, what year are we in again?
1981.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
And I mean, I feel like it's different, but she also like got on a Greyhound bus. I know that that's probably like normal for back then, but she just kind of seems very, I hate to say naive, but maybe like trusting, and she's young. I don't know.
Not into it.
Yeah, I know. Different times. The two are seen by witnesses exiting the restaurant. Then, only a few hours after Kimberly was seen leaving with this man, a woman's body was discovered by a paperboy. The paperboy was out on his paper route and was walking along the Mississippi River. The site was wooded and off the normal path. He finds the body of a woman laying face down. The boy calls the police, and the police take over the scene. The woman had been stabbed in the chest multiple times with an ice pick. At least, it's what police think was an ice pick. There's no murder weapon found around the body. The body was found close to a scenic view of the Mississippi River, so it's assumed that the man was like luring her here, pretending he was going to show her the river. Remember, she was going with him to see the sights of the city, so kind of tracks. The woman was clothed, but her bra had been unhooked. So police don't really know if this is sexually motivated or if the scuffle, her bra had just become unhooked. They're not sure. The woman didn't have any form of identification, so it's not immediately known who the woman was. If you remember, Kimberly had gotten off the Greyhound bus and put all of her belongings in a locker at the station because she was just running across the street to grab a bite. So yeah, police don't know who she is, and she's labeled a Jane Doe. But only for a short period of time, because that day, police would get a familiar call.
Absolutely not.
Finally, I just stabbed somebody with an ice pick. I can't stop myself. I keep killing somebody.
Is he crying?
I think he's trying to pretend like he's crying.
Help! I killed someone with an ice pick.
I can't
Did he
get
say-
to it.
Oh,
Did he say he was going to kill himself?
No, he said,
Yeah.
I can't stop killing, right?
Yeah, so if you can't understand what this whiny little man is saying, he's saying, will you GD find me? Will you find me? I just stabbed somebody with an ice pick. I can't stop myself. I keep killing somebody. The operator says, hello, are you there? And then he hangs up. So the ice pick hadn't been released to the media yet, of that being what the police thought was the murder weapon. We know that there's crazy people that call the police and pretend to confess or give tips, bogus tips to police. But this was just like the guy before. He mentions the ice pick. Adds up. Police know that it's him. They immediately know that they have a serial killer on their hands after Karen, and this was at least his second victim. Police discover that the call had come from a payphone nearby. Of course, they rush to the payphone, and the caller was gone. Because he doesn't actually want to be caught, he's just taunting police. A lot of people think that this man is like maybe having a mental break or like showing remorse, like calling and crying. I don't agree. I think you could just turn yourself over if you felt this much remorse, but I think that these calls to police are kind of just like a sick way for him to taunt and make other people scared. So police obviously know that this is the work of the same man, but they do not know the identity of Jane Doe. Police find a key in the girl's pocket, and they're able to trace it back to the Greyhound bus station and locker 750. Inside of the locker, they find all of Kimberly Compton's belongings and ID. After the autopsy, they discovered that Kimberly Compton had been stabbed with that ice pick 61 times. The sergeant on the case would say that he saw an extreme amount of rage. Obviously. If that was not enough, she was also strangled with a shoelace. However, it would be the stab wounds that caused her death. But that was like the cause of death, but they could tell by the autopsy that she had also been strangled. During the autopsy, they also find that Kimberly had undigested food in her stomach. It was a meal of barbecue, beef, and fries. They could tell based on the stage of the digestion that it was in exactly how long ago that Kimberly had actually eaten this food. So they discovered that she'd only eaten it hours before being killed. Police were able to track that back to the diner, Mickey's Diner, right across the street. Because remember, she ordered the special that day, which was the barbecue and fries. Police visit the diner and start their investigation there. They interviewed the staff, and they find out that Kimberly was there and actually ended up sitting and leaving with a guy who approached her table. The police asked if anyone remembered what he looked like. The staff couldn't really remember much other than that he was a tall man and had a bigger build. While police are in the beginning stages of the investigation, they get yet again another call 2 days later.
Don't talk, just listen. I'm sorry what I did to Compton. I couldn't help it. Don't know why I had to stab her. I am so upset about it. I keep getting drunk every night. I can't believe I did like a big dream. I can't think of being locked up. If I get locked up, I'll kill myself. I'd rather kill myself than get locked up. I'll try not to kill anybody else.
Literally, it sounds like a off-brand Mickey Mouse.
Yep.
It's a little different this time.
It is.
Yeah.
It sounds
On
more
Piper.
human.
Yeah. So this recording is a little bit different. It seems like he's a bit more calm compared to the other ones. He's still whining and pretending to cry. So we still know it's him, obviously, but he does sound a little bit more in control, which I think he is the whole time. But this little less dramatics, if you will. He then makes another call, but this time he's actually calling to correct something that the media got wrong when reporting the case. So he calls police, like, fact checking the media, I guess. We don't have that recording. I couldn't find it anywhere, but maybe it was not released or not recorded. I'm not sure, but it's just a really weird thing to do. Like, you're so upset that you're watching news coverage of yourself and correcting like these little things that they get wrong. Like, no, you wouldn't be doing that, you know? I mean, I don't think he's like having a mental break or anything. I think that, you know, obviously if you're killing people, you have something mentally wrong with you, but I don't think that I think just based off of his history of his calls, I think he's like pretty in control.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Police decide that maybe the best thing that they can do is release a portion of the audio to the public. They ask for people to listen to the voice and tell them if they recognize it. This is when the media would start to call the caller the Weepy Voice Killer, which is probably the name that you would know him by. So they released the audio, and actually, surprisingly, I guess a lot of people know somebody that this sounds like, question mark.
That's
So
horrible.
yeah,
I'd be so insulted.
I mean, yeah, like, thanks a lot. But police look into every lead, and none of them really went anywhere. Police finally come across a lead when a man named Alan Lopez is arrested. Lopez is arrested for holding his entire family hostage after killing his parents and sister brutally. Police came to arrest him for the murder, and they find that he's holding his entire family, or the rest of his family, I guess, hostage, saying that he'll kill them if they try to arrest him. Police are going back and forth with Lopez trying to get his family out of the situation. So at some point in this hostage situation, Alan seems to confess that he was the one that killed Kimberly Compton. When the family is safe, police arrest Alan. He was found guilty of murdering his parents and sisters, but placed in a mental health facility. And then before the police could get to Alan, on March 19th, 1982, Alan Lopez would kill himself.
Of course, not surprised.
Yeah. Police then find that on the day that Kimberly Compton was murdered, Alan was actually in jail. Police look into where Alan was during Karen's attack and discover that he was also in jail on that day. So while I'm glad police didn't just settle on Alan being the killer and just let him admit to something he didn't do, unfortunately now, police are now back at square one with really no leads. August 6, 1982, a 40-year-old nurse named Barbara Simmons was at a bar in Minneapolis. The bar was called the Hexagon Bar, and Barbara was just there hanging out, dancing, talking to people. And at one point, she went up to the bar to get a drink, and she says something to the bartender about the guy she'd been talking to. She says something along the lines of, "I hope this guy's okay because I just need a ride home."
Well, what is that?
Yeah. I guess she's saying like maybe having weird feelings already, but she's already planning on letting this guy give her a ride home. She met him at the bar.
What did she say again?
She said, "I hope this guy's okay because I just need a ride home."
Oh, okay. I thought you said because I'm getting a ride home, and I thought that meant from someone else. So I was like,
no.
oh.
I guess what's going on is she's at this bar. She needs a ride home. This guy's going to give her one, and she's kind of confiding in the bartender. She's like, "I hope he's okay because he's giving me a ride home."
I mean, if you're telling the bartender that,
you already have feelings. Yeah.
You already have thoughts.
Yeah. Wish the bartender would have done more, but they didn't. I guess it's 1982. I feel like people look out for people more now than they used to. I don't know if that's true, but I feel like just because we're more educated. Yeah.
Especially bartenders.
Yeah. They're more educated about like things, and social media shows, you know, things that people wouldn't see otherwise, and sharing stories. Anyways, that night, witnesses saw Rachel leaving the bar with this man who looked like he was around 40 years old and about 200 pounds and 6 feet tall. He had black hair and he was balding, so he kind of had like a receded hairline. He also had a mustache. And also, side note, when Barbara tells the bartender this, the bartender would report later that she looked at this guy, like stared at him and gave him like a really good look because she thought, you know, this was kind of odd and maybe she might have to identify him later. Still wish she would have done more. But she says
She
that
got a
did.
vibe too.
I know. So
Weird.
she's saying she did give the guy, like, she saw him and like studied him for a little bit because of what Barbara said.
Yeah.
And then there is another call that night.
Great. Can't wait to listen. So excited.
Emergency.
Please don't talk, just listen. I'm sorry I killed that girl. I stabbed her 40 times. Kimberly Compton was the first one. Oh, my safe. I don't know what's the matter with me. I'm sick. I'm going to kill myself, I think.
Where are you?
I'm just going to... If somebody dies with a red shirt on, it's me. I killed both of you. I'm sorry. I'll never make it to heaven.
Calm down. Calm.
So there's a comment on the YouTube video that says, I imagine him hanging up the phone and he quickly stops sobbing with an emotionless face and just walks away. And that's 100% what I like. I agree with that.
I was gonna say I literally just said that.
Like that 100% is just it's an act. And then he
Yeah.
He keeps saying he keeps getting drunk and doing this. Like he has no control. Like he's just getting drunk and he can't stop killing people when he gets drunk. Do you think that's like an excuse, or do you think maybe that is happening?
Oh no, I don't think he's even drunk. I feel like he's not drunk at all.
I mean,
This one is at a
gosh,
bar,
it's
but
just
he met the one girl at the diner. Like he wouldn't be drunk at lunch. I think people would notice if he was drunk.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I feel like the woman too wouldn't have gotten a ride home if he was like blasted and couldn't drive.
So this call is really hectic and crazy, at least more than the last one. And you can kind of see a correlation between how long it takes him to call the police and the like franticness in his voice. So he's kind of, I feel like he's like either frantic, kind of stressed, or he's like on that like high, I guess, that killers have explained, you know? So there's like what I'm trying to say is I guess there's like a correlation to that. So this call is very hectic and crazy, and this was close to when the body would be found. So police have still not found any body yet, but after this call, they know the Weepy voice killer has struck again, and they know they'll be finding a body soon. This would be the third victim and second murder, since we know Karen survived. The next day, the body of Barbara Simmons is found. Barbara's body had been thrown into the Mississippi River, but her body had become tangled in some weeds on the bank. Barbara was beaten and stabbed over 100 times, with what police believe again is an ice pick or screwdriver. Police backtrack Barbara's steps back to the bar and find the bartender, who tells them that she had gotten a really good look at the man that Barbara left with. The bartender was then taken to the police station, where she was shown a bunch of mugshots of people. And she was shown a ton of mugshots, actually over 100. So I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason to who they show her, but they're obviously just kind of like grasping at straws. But suddenly the bartender stops and says, "That's him." It was a photo of 38-year-old Paul Michael Stefani. He had been arrested and convicted of aggravated assault in the past, so that's why they had his mugshot. Paul Stefani was born September 8, 1944 in Austin, Minnesota. He was the youngest of 10 children born into a Catholic family, and Stefani was a very devout Catholic. Paul's parents divorced at some point in his childhood, and then his mother remarried when he was about 3 years old. It was reported that Paul's stepfather beat his stepchildren. He would throw them down the stairs of their house, was one report. So his mom was married to this man since he was 3, so we can only assume that pretty much his whole childhood was filled with abuse. Stefani moved to St. Paul, Minnesota in the mid-1960s when he got a job as a shipping clerk and janitor. Stefani actually marries, and he marries a woman named Beverly Leiter, and actually had one daughter with her. But soon after his daughter was born, he and Beverly got divorced. I also saw reports that said after the couple divorced, Stefani didn't really have much to do with his daughter, which was probably good. He did manage to hold down several jobs over the years, and they're kind of random, but at one time he was a janitor at the Malvern Manufacturing Company. After he was fired, Paul went on a spree of alcoholism after losing his job. Police discovered that this same manufacturing company was the one where Karen's body was found. Police get permission from the judge to conduct a 24-hour surveillance on Paul. They think that it could be him, and they have high hopes, but they can't prove it yet. But with the nature of how horrendous these crimes are, they need to find the serial killer as quick as possible to stop anyone else from dying. So they start following Paul Stefani everywhere he goes. August 21st, 1982, only one day later, he's in his car and police somehow lose him. Like, police just lose him. I don't know if they fell asleep. I don't know who fell. I don't know. I don't think he was like trying to lose them. I don't think he knows at this point that he's being followed, but police just lose track of him. He goes to the town in Minneapolis, and he goes to the avenue where one would go to get a sex worker. And he picks up 19-year-old Denise Williams. The two have sex, and Paul Stefani offers to give Denise a ride back. She takes him up on the offer because, like, what else is she gonna do? And they drive back to where Denise was picked up. But Denise immediately notices that Paul's driving in the wrong direction. And they had just come from the right direction, so he would know how to get back. And now he's going the wrong way. He drives her onto a pitch black road. He starts saying a bunch of weird stuff about like fantasies, and he starts to freak her out. And she's getting uncomfortable, obviously. She asks where he's taking her, and he assures her that everything is fine and that they're just taking a shortcut. But Denise knows this area well. She's actually been a sex worker working this area since she was 13 years old, which is really sad. But she knows the area well and knows that this is not any kind of shortcut. Denise is also very street smart from her time out there. She immediately starts looking around in his car for something to use as a weapon to defend herself. She spots a glass bottle on the car floorboard. Paul stops the car and turns it off. She tells Paul to turn the car back on, and he tells her pretty much no one rides for free, and immediately tries to grab her. Denise tries to jump out of the car, but he catches her, and then grabs a Phillips head screwdriver and stabs Denise in the stomach. Denise immediately grabs the glass bottle that she was eyeing from the floorboard and smashes it over Paul's head. This slices his head and face open. So, hell yeah. Both are injured, but Paul is bleeding badly. Denise's wounds are more of puncture wounds, so she's not bleeding as much. Paul yells, "You're just like those other broads." And he says this in a high-pitched and whiny voice, as she would describe it. Like the voice of the Weepy voice killer. Denise is still fighting back, but all she can see is blood. There's blood coming from everywhere, pouring from both of them. In this moment, it's complete chaos. Eventually, Denise is able to pull the car door handle open, and she falls out on the ground. And Paul falls right on top of her, continuing to stab her with the screwdriver. Denise is screaming as loud as she can as she's being stabbed over and over. Luckily, there was a house in the distance. The house was not visible from where Paul and Denise were, so Paul probably thought that there was no one down this road. But he messed up. There was a home pretty close, and the people had their windows open. The man that heard the screams, his name was Doug. Doug runs out of his house and sees this scene. He sees Denise laying on the ground, almost dead at this point, but still clutching the broken bottle in her hand, and a man on top of her stabbing her. He witnessed about 5 to 6 stabs. Doug actually reports that the stabbing was so violent that he could hear the screwdriver hitting the bone because it would make a thud. Just disgusting to think about, but that's what he said. Doug tries to throw Paul off, but Paul turns around to Doug and starts trying to come at Doug. Doug runs back to his house. He calls 911 and he grabs a gun. Paul Michael Stefani gets in his car and speeds away. Doug runs out of his house and continues to try to help Denise. So Doug's the real hero right now. The ambulance gets to Denise, and the hospital is able to do emergency surgery and save Denise's life. I don't know what hospital this is, but I want to live close to it because what the heck?
All the awards.
All the awards. She had been stabbed at least 15 times. As you probably could have guessed, police get another call that night. But actually, this dumbass is calling an ambulance for himself because he's hurt, remember? He's hurt. So I don't have the call. I couldn't find it for the life of me. But he says that he got beat up. And yeah, you sure as hell did, Paul. You got the shit beat out of you. Paul's bleeding heavily, and he's literally got gashes going down his head into his face. And police recognize the voice and know immediately that it was him. Also, because at the same time, Denise is describing to police what she had done to Paul. She's like, I took this glass bottle, slammed it on his head, split his face open in his head, and this man's injuries match up pretty well. And it doesn't take a scientist to connect these. But Paul's trying to like play this card of like he got like robbed or something or beat up, and like he's calling the police just for like, help. Which is what makes me also think that he didn't know he was being followed, because he has no idea that they know who he is. So Denise is taken to the police station and she's shown a photo lineup, and she picks Paul right away. Paul's arrested and charged with attempted murder. Although the police know that this is the wimpy voice killer, they need to bring him in for questioning and get him to confess to all the murders. So we know that at the very least he's guilty for attempted murder after trying to kill Denise. Paul Stefani is arrested and questioned, and while police are talking to him, they notice that this man's voice doesn't really sound like the Weepy voice killer, the voice that police had been hearing in their heads for months. This man has a pretty normal voice. They begin showing Stefani photos of the victims. They tell him that they know he's involved and that they know these are his victims. This aggravates Paul, and he gets really pissed off. He gets up from his chair and he yells, "You're not going to pin those on me." Police officers then say that all of a sudden, Paul Stefani's voice suddenly changed into the voice of the Weepy voice killer. The exact same voice from the infamous phone calls.
You know what I was thinking? When he attacked the girl in the car and she said like his voice was high pitched out of nowhere, I'm wondering, not like a bipolar disorder, but I'm wondering if there's something that triggers him to have this other voice. Like it's, when he gets upset, when he gets angry or whatever, it's like almost a coping. Yes. Like it's almost not a coping thing, but you get what I'm saying? Like it triggers him to have this other voice.
I mean, not to diagnose him, but isn't it like split personality disorder comes from people who had a lot of trauma in their childhood?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's completely possible. Police arrest Paul for the murder of Barbara Simmons and Kimberly Compton. Police need to coordinate with St. Paul, where Karen Poltak was almost killed. And we've talked about this before, but sometimes it's really hard for police in different jurisdictions to work with each other. And this is the 80s, so it's definitely not as good communication line as there is today. And even today, it can still be challenging for court systems and investigators to work together. So anyway, St. Paul has the calls that the killer left, but no other physical evidence really in the case. But they agree that this is the guy. But Paul is just charged with the 2 murders for now. First, Stefani is brought to trial for the attempted murder of Denise Williams, the most recent victim. Police have more than enough evidence to get a conviction on this. He pleads guilty. During the trials, the prosecution brings in a voice expert to listen to the calls and listen to Stefani's voice and make the official determination that this is the same guy. The voice expert says, and I quote, "They're remarkably similar." But that's like all he said. So, okay, don't know. But anyways, the prosecution also calls in Paul's ex-wife, his sister, and another woman who had like maybe been his roommate or lived around him at some point in time. And they all testified that this was the voice of Paul Michael Stefani. And actually, when Paul's sister listened to the recording in court, she puts her head down and starts to cry. She said, "Without a doubt, that is my brother." Paul Stefani was found guilty of attempted murder and second-degree murder and received 58 years in prison, 18 for Denise's attack and 40 years for the murder of Barbara.
I'm sorry, that's it?
There'll be more.
Right, even Millie doesn't like that.
Yeah. Now Minnesota needs to charge him with Kimberly's murder and Karen's attempted murder. But surprisingly, they claim that they don't have enough evidence to charge him. They claim that they really have no physical evidence and all they have is the phone calls which contained information that only the killer would know. They claim they need more evidence. It's really annoying and probably devastating for these people's families. Although we know he'll be in prison for probably the rest of his life, and I know we've talked about this before, but seeing the follow through, the totality of justice of the conviction for these people who know that it's him and know that he did it and know that he's going to jail, but just to get their day in court and get some justice is important. They deserve justice and they deserve to see their day in court and see that person convicted. Unfortunately, some of the families are told that they may not see their day in court. Paul Michael Stefani served 12 years in prison, and then he was diagnosed with terminal skin cancer. After this, Paul had some kind of revelation because he asked to speak with the St. Paul police. Paul said he had some information that the police may be wanting, and in return for this information, get this, Paul wants the police to go take a picture of his grandmother's headstone and give it to him. I wish you could see my face.
Wait, I'm sorry. Wait, what?
In
What's
return
that
for all of
wanted?
this information, he just wants a photo of his grandmother's headstone.
That's a
What the-
pretty easy request. I'd be like, okay, yeah, I'll print out several copies. What do you need to
Yeah.
tell me?
Yeah. Do you want it on
Sure,
a
yep. I
CD?
literally will go on my lunch
Framed?
break. Yeah.
Yeah. But just how freaking weird. Like, what? Why? What are you gonna do with it? Why do you care?
I guess he misses his grandma.
I mean, maybe. It's just bizarre. Like, not a picture of her, a picture of her headstone, you know?
Yeah, I keep forgetting he is a serial killer. Maybe there is like a morbid explanation.
Yeah. I mean, if you missed her, I feel like you'd want her picture, but okay. Anyways, this guy's abnormal, obviously. So they get this weird ass picture and they ask him what he has to tell police. Paul Michael Stefani confesses everything, beginning with the murder of Karen. He explains in a very cool and calm manner that he picked Karen up out of the alley, that she had no jacket, and he thought he just might warm her up. Because, you know, he's a nice guy, remember? And he claims that something in him just snapped. They asked if he hit her a couple times with the tire iron, and he's like, God, no, must have been about 30 or 20 times. He said that he was mainly swinging it and hitting her on the forehead and on the cheeks, jaw, etc., and one on the top of the head, but only about 10 times. But then he says that he noticed that she must be really hurting. With a steel bar like that, he kept going another 10 hits. Paul then confesses to the murder of Kimberly Compton. He said that they started talking at the diner and he told her that he would show her around the town. He told her that he would drive by the river and thought maybe they might just have a picnic. Okay. And in about 15 minutes, she was dead. When she got out of the car at the river, she was turned around walking, and Paul grabbed a knife from his car. He said he had every intention of hurting her. He said they laid down in the grass, and I guess he unclasped her bra. Maybe she resisted, I don't know. But then he started to stab her with the knife he was concealing. He says doing this hurt him, like, I guess emotionally. So he went to the payphone and called the police because he, quote, really wanted to help her when his mind started clearing up. He said that he asked himself what he was doing. He was like, you could have had a chance to make another friend. So I think he's just trying to make people feel bad for him and make himself sound like this sweet, like, oh, he's just like trying to make a friend. Like, I don't know. But he planned this. He took the knife from the car and he said he had full intentions of killing her. Then, Paul Stefani tells police something they're not expecting. He tells police that he's killed another girl, a girl that police haven't even mentioned to him. But he claims that he did not know her name, so he couldn't give it to them. But he drowned her in the bathtub of her own apartment. Police checked to see if there'd been any drownings in apartment bathtubs recently, and sure enough, 33-year-old Kathleen Greening. And y'all, her case was ruled an accident and closed.
Oh.
June 21st, 1982, Kathleen Greening and her friend Carol Kellogg were planning to leave for a trip together. So Carol comes over to Kathleen's house that morning to pick her up, or her apartment to pick her up, but no one answered the door. Carol notices that the door is open and unlocked, so she pushes it open and calls with no reply. She knows that this is weird, so she starts searching through the house. She finds Kathleen in the bathtub, face up and cold. So, like I said, this case was initially ruled an accident. And actually, in the beginning, police actually looked at Kathleen's estranged husband as a suspect, but that never really went anywhere, and the police ruled it an accidental drowning. Unfortunately, we don't have much information other than that. We don't know how or why Paul even knew Kathleen or how he entered the house that day to kill her. However, we do know that when police collected evidence from Kathleen's apartment back in 1982, which surprised they did that, but they did, so that's good. They collected an address book with phone numbers in it, and they looked back at the numbers and realized that there was an entry for Paul S. with his phone number. Of course, at that time, the police wouldn't have known who that was or didn't really have any significance. But this shows that they did meet at some point, and we don't know how or why. I guess Paul never tells, but I couldn't really find anything about that. This obviously tells them that he's telling the truth. Paul Stefani did in fact kill her, which is actually so weird because this murder happened between the attempted murder of Karen and the murder of Kimberly Compton. So Kathleen is a Weepy voice killer's second victim. And what's so weird about that is this murder was so different than all the others. All the other victims were lured into his car, where he would drive them to a location and kill them. But here he's like breaking into Kathleen's home. He didn't call the police and cry and whine like he did the others. So why not? Do I think he did it? Yes, big time. Obviously, yes, he did kill her. But I do find this really strange. Like there was something different about this killing for him.
Was it that he knew her?
I don't know. Maybe.
But like the different method of murder is what's weird.
Yeah, I don't want to say like I question whether or not he actually did it, but you know how sometimes we see it all the time in stories that people claim they did kill somebody that they didn't. They're just taking blame, claim of it. Because he knew her, I just think that it's a completely different way than he killed everybody else. Like it wasn't his MO at all.
Yeah, and I would totally go for that, except the fact that I don't feel like police were even pushing this. Like if they were like, oh, you're on your deathbed, did you do this one? And he's like, yeah, sure, I did it. I could see that. Yeah. But this was somebody that they didn't even push. I mean, it was case closed as an accident. So it's kind of weird for him to confess that. You're maybe
right. I forgot that it was an accident and not labeled as a murder.
But I mean, this guy obviously seems to have like different personalities. Maybe this was, I don't know. It's completely different. He's weird. This case, this attack is weird. I don't know. They show Paul a picture of Kathleen Greening and he confirms that this is the girl he killed. He said he held both of her shoulders under the water until she drowned. He said there was just a voice in the back of his head that said, Paul, it's time to kill. He said that he went to church after because his mother always told him that if something hurts you, go to God.
He totally has split personality. I mean, not to diagnose like Kylie said, but the voice, the talking in the back of the head.
It at least seems like it, yeah. He would then say that killing just came easy to him, like driving a car, eating food. It was just part of life. To me, it seemed like killing was a part of life until I did it. But then he did it 4 times, so I don't understand that statement really at all. But anyways, Paul Michael Stefani died on June 12th, 1998 in Oak Park Heights Prison. He was 53 years old. That is the story of the Weepy voice killer.
Well, I usually say I hate that the person died and they didn't get to rot out in prison, but in this case I'm okay because it was something of natural cause. He did suffer, and he also didn't die in a medical facility. He was in the prison.
I hope he did. I hope he suffered a little.
He was weepy and he was creepy.
That was awful, and I don't think I'll get that voice out of my head. So thank you for the nightmares tonight.
Yes, you're welcome. Do you guys want to hop into overtime?
Yes, let's do it. All I need to know is, Holly, tell us, how was the eclipse party?
Well, okay, so Russell expected a ton of people, and we didn't get as many people as we thought. So there's a lot of mad people on Facebook. Yeah, being like, our community prepared for this and put so much money into this, and the data is off, and all this crazy stuff. And then there's some people well, we had to prepare for the worst and blah, 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 but definitely didn't need to be stocking up on groceries, didn't need to be stocking up on medication like we were told. So that was really interesting. Yeah, some people
why
were
would
really mad.
Why would you have to stock up on medication?
It's a one day.
It's a 4-minute ordeal.
Yeah, 4 minutes.
We got flyers in the mail it was the apocalypse. It was literally stock up on medication, stock up on food, driving during the eclipse. It was literally crazy. I was scared. I was actually it frightened me. And then we got a third of the people we thought we were going to get, and everything was fine. And you could go to any restaurant in town and eat.
Was it cool though?
Was it fun?
You have 100% totality, right?
100% totality for 4 minutes straight. And it actually, I did was dissing the eclipse and I was saying like this is crazy that people care this much. It's like 4 minutes of darkness.
Totality is really cool.
Yeah, I was like, I can close my eyes and see darkness. I see it every night, blah, blah, blah. But it was actually a pretty cool experience. I mean, it was just like a different kind of darkness. Like it wasn't like because the sun was still shining like on the edges, it was still kind of light, but like dark at the same time. The street lights came on and stuff. It was actually pretty cool.
What time of the day was it for you?
It was totality at 2 p.m.
Okay, yeah. At 3:03 was the max here for us in Jupiter, Florida, but there was no difference whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mine was at 3:01 and I went outside and I looked at it, couldn't tell a difference. The sun was so bright, I couldn't see even the moon.
I don't remember what year it was. I want to say like 2017, 2018. I was in college in Wilmington and there was some type of eclipse as well. And I remember that was a big day. Like because I feel like that was the first time in my life I had even heard of anything like this. And I remember going to the beach and the beach was packed and it was in the middle of the day. We all skipped school for it and everybody had their glasses on looking up and it was really cool. Nothing changed, but yeah, total darkness. That must have been really cool.
Yeah, it was actually pretty cool. I mean, I wouldn't go like travel across the country for it, but I definitely had it underrated in my head.
Next one is 2045 and it's going to go straight through Florida. So we'll get the next one, Kate.
Oh, hell
nice.
21 years.
Great. I hope I'm not still here.
What's really funny is that y'all, this won't be anybody special for y'all, but there's like this news anchor who's like the chief meteorologist or whatever for like local news here. Not local news, I guess like Arkansas news.
Was he the one that cried?
Oh no,
Oh, okay, never mind. I was watching a video of a guy crying and it was actually really cute. It was a meteorologist. Yeah.
This was not him, I don't think. He doesn't look like a crier, but maybe, I don't know. He parked his RV. He stayed at my house, the news anchor.
Oh,
that's my friend Maddie, I guess, has some kind of connection to him and asked if I had a plug for him for an RV, which I did in the garage. And so I was like, yeah, he can come park his RV out here. So he did. And I was like, got a meteorologist stay in my front yard. I thought that was funny.
That's really cool.
But yeah. We also had like 100 people, over 100 people get married at our soccer complex, a mass wedding.
I saw that was a thing too. Yeah.
Yeah. Cute.
During the darkness, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. It was good. That's my overtime. And with that, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Over My Dead Pod. If you want even more information, including photos of the case, you can check out our blog on overmydeadpod.com. Be sure to leave a review wherever you're listening to this and check us out on social media at Over My Dead Pod. We'll see you next week with another case. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.